Blood satellite.
And I wanted to begin with an article that I came across a while ago, and we never got to cover it until now, but I think it's fitting to cover it now. And it's written by Spandrell, who we had on the show previously. Fantastic interview. Go look that up. He relaunched his website, and with this article called A Post-Mortem on Neoreaction. And he's talking about the Neoreactionary movement, the NRX movement that popularly started with him and Nick Land and Curtis Yarvin and, in a sense, Bronze Age Pervert. A lot of personalities in the sphere. Was very exciting for a time, and a lot of people in our space right now remember getting into the space through that. A lot of them denounce it now. A lot of them outright hate some of these individuals, but they still think back as their entry point. So he's looking back on that as well. What went right, what went wrong. I just wanted to read a few parts to tee up this next section. He says, I'm going to skip ahead here, cut out the first part, and just maybe keep the meat of what I want to talk about here. He says, so back to the topic. What happened to Neoreaction? Well, as I was saying, the blogosphere as a whole more or less died. So, of course, Neoreaction, as a small, if influential subset of it, suffered the same fate. And I recall this personally because I remember back in the day when I was even in my teens, there was this thing called the blogosphere, and the blogosphere was cool. Cool people were on it. The idea of writing an article, sometimes daily, about your everyday life was kind of an interesting thing. And I actually see a lot of parallels with the art scenes right now, especially the female-driven ones, with blogging, or they used to call it live journaling, but blogging was a bit more design heavy and public facing and just a bit more polished. But you don't hear people talk about it anymore. I think social media killed that, but you know, there was MySpace around at the time as well, so it's not like there was a heavy dividing line between the two. Anyway, the blogosphere, who Substack would be the rebirth of that in a sense, but it's not the same thing. It's much smaller, and it's more of a refuge for people who want to be professional writers rather than a bottom up. I'm just a person who's getting into writing. I think that's the main difference. He says a big part of it is, again, just churn, being outcompeted by faster and dumber internet products, and generational turnover. The bulk of Neoreaction was early millennials, what the Chinese call after 80s. These people are now solidly in middle age, and shit happens in middle age. Presumably, and in my experience, a lot of us get married, had kids, work got busy, yada, yada, yada. It's always easy to find time for shit posting on Twitter, not so much for writing lengthy essays on history or political theory for the benefit of a few hundred internet strangers. That's something to keep in mind too. That was the size of the audience you were looking at, and ain't nothing wrong with that. Maybe having a few hundred dedicated followers is better than having several thousand who are, or maybe tens of thousands, who are eagerly working towards your downfall, which is a position that a lot of creators find themselves in, unfortunately. Anyway, he said, where's my collapse? Where's this big crisis where all government, actually, I'm going to scroll back up here. It also coincided that as most lost the physical energy to write much, the urge also went away. Neoreaction was never an advocacy movement, either a libertarian-like push to lobby governments for incremental deregulation, or an attempt to take over the institutions in any way. Some factions did try to get into active politics, and I'm told a select few did get close to positions of power, but for the most part, it was just an analysis movement with a general undertone of, if I may put it that way, doomerism. Again, not a criticism. I'm certainly guilty of this myself. The best example of this is, of course, Moldbug, Curtis Yarvin, now an adorned public intellectual and NYC underground celebrity who famously said there's nothing to be done except become worthy and just wait shit out to get so bad the elite itself comes to us surrendering the reins of power. A related approach, and more popular, has been to develop a counter-elite, including active outreach to sympathetic elite normies in order to create a new shadow ruling class to take over after the collapse. Sound familiar? What collapse, though? Where is my collapse? Where is the big crisis? Damn, that would be nice, wouldn't it? But no, we can't have nice things. We've all been here arguing at length about how everything sucks for more than 15 years. 15 years is a long time, man. It boggles the mind that things not only keep sucking, but they keep sucking increasingly more and more, and people just take it. If you have told us in 2010 that Britain would look like this, and he's got a link here, just typical stuff you probably see in Muslims and whatnot, that an obviously 80-year-old would be POTUS while being senile and be running again, that Japan would be filling up with Kurds and subcons, and that the Chinese countryside would be filling with half black kids because the only women breeding there are nigger brides. Well, I would have said that sounds about right, but damn, shit really is bad. I don't think Spandrell gets enough credit for being funny in his writing. And when I read like the IQ Shredder stuff, and you read the classics from him, I don't think that comes through. This is pretty. This is a shit posty. I like it. It's like when Nick Land gets on Twitter. As I wrote back in my conflict post, Neoreaction was an uneasy alliance of ethno-nationalists, theocrats, and techno-accelerationists. Those three factions are as alive as ever. They are pretty old and stable political shelling points, not exactly Lindy. It's not fixed in human nature, but it sure is a stable equilibrium in an industrial society. You have some people clinging to old religious agrarian order. That's the theocrats. You have another group who took power from them by building a new coalition based on the larger scale of organization enabled by industrialism. This is the nationalists. You have smaller, edgy minority getting ready for the next shift change. They're the accelerationists, the techno accelerationists. I'd say they're the most maybe the most effective right now in terms of getting capital allocation, but I think there's a lot of shadowy parallel society stuff going on as well. Trads and accelerationists are alive and well. They're very much thriving on Twitter. Nationalists, less so. Interesting. As a former fascist sympathizer, I can see why the allure of fascism in 2024 is much, much diminished for a few reasons. A big one was COVID. I agree. See, the point of fascism is that collective action is necessary to have nice things. We need a strong government committed to the good of the people. The health of the people is the most important law. Cicero wasn't a fascist, of course, nor is Yarvin really. A big point of fascism is to define narrowly the populace as an ethnic group with demonstrable ties of blood. This makes the government ties to the people stronger, which is important, very important. Collective action can be sure good. A lot of good things can come out of intelligently done collective action. Fascism is not a panacea, but it works when you let it. Strong government can be pretty neat. So why is strong government less appealing these days? Well, COVID happened, as our governments were pretty damn strong in dealing with it. This is true. They made strong laws and enforced them. And what they did do, and what did they do with their power? Absolutely retarded shit. Destroyed the world economy and made 95% of people completely miserable for 18 months, up to 3 long years in some places. Again, as the Orient enjoyer, I was very sympathetic of strong, effective government. My life has been pretty cozy thanks to it for the past few decades. Fuck that shit. I'm out. I don't want to see strong government ever again. I was very lucky I was out of China in November 2019. It was a fluke, really. Not just seeing how retarded governments were, the level of compliance by the people was so disheartening. Imagine being a sincere fascist and seeing your people behave like that. These are my people, the Voke. Am I supposed to sacrifice life and limb for the solace of the populace? Fuck that. Let them cook. They deserve everything that's coming to them. Hey, I hear you. Those thoughts have crossed my mind as well. But I think what he's getting at there is very real. Like internet fascism ain't what it used to be. And I think a lot of the internet fascists know it too. They've graduated up to multipolarity. They've graduated up to Duganism. They're looking at leftism and communism a lot more friendly. Like we talked about the NJP before. Look at them. Like they're talking about severing ties completely to white nationalists. Look at Cantwell. Cantwell's a great example of the guy who's saying, like, I don't want to be in this thing anymore. Well, honestly, there's not a lot of them left, unfortunately. Or at least the big content creators are making a break for the exit. And I think a lot of the diehard true believers are looking around like, okay, well, what now? It's that what now that I think that space is asking more than any other space. Given all these trends, again, I think it's natural that ethno-nationalism declines as a viable political platform. Okay. Note it's not exactly dead though. Neoreaction is dead, but because Neoreaction was home for the smartest, the tail of the ethno-nationalist bell curve. And it's always the smart people who see the trends and change accordingly. But the rest of the bell curve is naturally slower to react. So you get stuff like Trumpism and the general dumbing down of right-wing discourse. If you're on Twitter at all, you might have seen the guy Richard Hanania, he calls him Richard Banania, who was a firebrand Richard Spencer type, a non-fascist in his young years. Then he got $1 million from Mark Andreessen and proceeded to face fag and become a garden variety neocon pushing open borders and infinite support for Israel, our greatest ally. He's still solid on the woman question and the nigger question, and kudos to that, but 80% of his content is just dunking on Trumpism. Is he Richard Hanania or is Richard Banania a different guy? Maybe I'm thinking of a different. No, it's Richard Hanania. I think people. Is that the. Yeah. He's that fucking weird looking guy. Yeah, he's a guy. Anyway, I guess he used to be pretty cool. So he's saying maybe ethno-nationalism is on its way out. A lot of people would disagree with that, but maybe what we are feeling is that trend and looking for the next trend to hop on. And maybe it's just rebranding, maybe it's reconfiguring, maybe it's reorganizing, because I don't think racial awareness is going away. And I think racial awareness is more strong than ever before. But what do we do with the fact that a lot of the familiar white nationalist talking points have been tried in the marketplace of ideas and didn't land very well? So it's not a problem of awareness. It's not a problem of popularity. What now? Letting that aside, though, we're talking about Richard Hanania. I've seen a lot of this firsthand with my extended family falling into a few of these bizarre right-wing grifts over the past years. Thankfully, it's much less bad in Europe, at least for now. And it's still preferable to having left-wing family, but still, it's quite sad. But it shows there's a vacuum there. Grifts are ephemeral. They're just pathogens preying on a diseased body, but they won't kill it. And once the body is healthy again, they'll naturally fizzle away. Is there a way to make the body healthy again? I do think so. I think there's still a place for a successor right-wing ideology, which is neither Christian fundamentalism or robot worship. And it will happen, but it won't happen on Twitter. Maybe it can happen on Urbit or right here on this site or Substack, I guess. I have some ideas myself. So anyway, that's the end of that article. And I think there's a lot that touches on what we discussed so far in the episode with the evolution of the discourse, certain individuals leaving it, but the perennial nature of certain arguments that seem to keep emerging over time because they haven't truly been resolved. I think what I'll do is I'll talk about this book that I've been reading recently, and we're going to kick off a sequence of books in the same vein that we really haven't gone deep into this topic before. And it's more about, we've talked about Marshall McLuhan. We've talked about a lot of media theory, and we've talked about linguistics and communication and the relationship of, the center versus the periphery of power and how communication operates in those spaces. I wanted to investigate more acutely the digital world in which we live and how that information revolution, the fifth wave, as some people call it, has impacted our lives and impacted how we relate to each other, and most importantly, impacted the sorts of social movements that we are allowed to do right now. Because I've said this before, but a lot of us in this side of things, and even on the left as well, we're still locked into a 20th century mindset. Our idea of revolution is very 19th century. And we love the iconography and imagery of mid 20th century stuff. Like leftists still look like leftists of the fucking 1930s. Same colors, same imagery. And it's quaint it's nostalgic, it may very well be inspiring, but it's the sort of revolution that doesn't seem to work anymore. Like, you still have leftists going on about unionization, about people banding together, and that sort of Eastern collectivism that we were talking about before. That just never seems to take. Similarly, on the right, we have a very, early to mid 20th century version of how these military coups or people's revolutions, fascist revolutions, whatever, can operate. And they just don't seem to take. Even if you model it identically to how they used to be before, it fizzles out. It doesn't have a wide audience, or as wide an audience as you think they would be. And it's not necessarily because of censorship and oppression. It's that it just doesn't seem, that iconography, that language, that type of human configuration doesn't seem to be applicable to the type of mind or groupings that we have currently, especially for younger and younger generations. So I have this book I read, very interesting, called Humans as Media, The Emancipation of Authorship. Now, in my career in digital marketing, that sector of it, we talk about things like this and have for a long time. And I was cautious going into this book because it's talking about how the digital revolution has given us, everyone's an author, everyone is a content creator, and what does that mean for us? And I've heard that my entire career, and I've heard social media optimists my entire life sell me on that, like the digital revolution is going to completely destroy legacy media. Hasn't really yet. Not. It seems that rather than destroy legacy media, we're kind of waiting for legacy media to die with the boomers, and then we have our version of alt media, which is almost a synthesis between legacy media and new media. And maybe that's just what we're stuck with. Instead of CNN, we'll be stuck with 15 smaller, shittier CNNs, So, but I've been sold the promise of the digital revolution my entire career, and it's just never really transpired, at least not how it was promised. And so I approached this book called The Emancipation of Authorship, very, very cynically, but it was recommended by some people that I really respect. So, I gave it a shot, and I liked it more than I thought I would. There's a lot in here, and I think we can also build on, as we're talking about in the future, Ray Kurzweil and Martin Gurry and some of these other ideas about how, like, what the future will actually look like, because it doesn't take the form of the secular humanist approach that everyone's just going to be atomized and that's kind of what the meta space was banking on. I think this is why things like the meta space fail. We're talking about VR. We're talking about Mark Zuckerberg saying, "Buy this headset, and you can be whatever you want to be in a blank canvas digital space." And for some reason, that people don't like that, and we don't know why. We keep trying. We keep selling them on infinity and eternal possibilities, and that just doesn't seem to gel with people. So why is that? So we're going to get into answering that over the next little while. But I'm just going to start reading some of the things I liked about this book. So the background here, just to set up for people who don't know what I'm talking about, he says, the demographic transition of the 20th century was marked by the appearance of a new social phenomena, the pivotal generation. And this is something we've talked about before, about how, this idea emerged of each generation being like a self-contained revolution in itself, which is such a new idea, right? It says the pivotal generation was the first generation whose life lasted longer than an era. It was a generation of people who, for the first time in history, found themselves living through two or even more eras within their single human lifetime. In Russia, the pivotal generation consisted of those born in the 1930s and 40s. They were raised in the agrarian era, they worked through the industrial era, and many of them are dabbling in the post-industrial era. If an era is shorter than a generation, the balance between speed and technical innovation and speed of adaptation breaks down. And that's an interesting, I don't think that gets brought up a lot, but on kind of a one-to-one basis when we talk, we always say, like, what the hell is the world going to be like when we're 70, right? Or what are our kids going to be doing?
Right.
they almost seem like an alien species. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of weird. Like we're expecting like 12 mind revolutions by the time we retire. And there was a time that's not a sensible way for a human being to live in, but it's getting accelerated in that sense. He says, in the space of approximately 20 years, in the blink of an eye, historically speaking, more authors have appeared than during the previous 6,000 years of literary civilization. And that's just a fact. A lot of people will push back and say, yeah, but what are people writing? It's like, yeah, true. But, people were writing dog shit 1,000 years ago, too. you know? Um, he kind of summarizes it as this. I think this is an important part. He says, when he talks about the emancipation of people in media, he says, the first emancipation of content is related to the appearance of the demotic script of ancient Egypt around the 7th century, a phenomenon that gave common people the ability to write. This represented the emancipation of writing. The second emancipation of content followed the invention of the Gutenberg press around 1445. The ability to print multiple copies of a book reduced its cost, giving the common people access to the Bible and ancient texts. This was the emancipation of reading. What we are now experiencing is the third emancipation of content, the emancipation of authorship. This does not mean that every private message is worthy of attention. It means that the palaces and places of worship have again lost their monopoly, this time over the production of meaning. And I think that's really the thing to underline in all this. It's like, we write things, more people writing. What does that mean? But it's that we get to define what meaning is, what value is, more than a top-down, perhaps a totalitarian, arguably elitist format that we used to have. So our power isn't just, and I think this is what he doesn't say outright, but it's what I believe. It's that the power of the people isn't just who reads the most. Now, there's a lot of people in our spaces who think it is. You read the most stuff, you cram the most knowledge in your head, and then you become an expert. But I don't think we really value experts like that on our side of things, or even in the culture broadly. You know what I mean? Like we don't, if you have a degree, a master's, a doctorate in anthropology, speaking for myself, I don't give a shit. What about you? Like if someone credentials you with something like that, aside from like
No.
not a neurosurgeon, right?
I mean, to me, it's to the point where my value system is such that people who front run their credentials, I have less respect for them. I write them off just because I don't know. I haven't really analyzed that, but that's what I've been doing for a long time. So
yeah, and so you listen to like expert people who have doctorates in anthropology, in history, and things like that, and they could write very well. But it's like I don't respect you necessarily more than this guy I know on Telegram who's also read a lot of stuff. Yeah. And he and he cites his sources and he speaks coherently. But I'm like, so your credential, it is not necessarily related to how I define the value of meaning in the text I am reading. Also because I've seen so many fucking dog brain, shit-headed books published, right? So established publishing is not any sort of credential that matters to me either. And he says here, and I believe this to be true too, he said, if you only consume content, you're invisible. You don't exist. A web presence, by its very function, forces people to become active content producers. I publish, therefore I am. Publishing is turning from an opportunity into an obligation. I found that interesting. And the further we go, the truer this becomes. This is only logical because publishing has become a means of socialization. And that's what memes are in a lot of ways. People have often tried to pigeonhole what memes actually mean, because memes are the sort of space between official published writing and just conversing with your friends. It makes like the conversation more real. It's something you produce, you make an image, and you pass it around as if it was content. And that's a different sort of meaning, even though it's oftentimes just as frivolous. There's no author attached, but it is content. And so it becomes more real once you make it into content. Anyway, point being that when he talks about content, it's not just a blog or a song. You're talking about comment sections. You're talking about having a take. This is the economy of takes. And we can make fun of the economy of takes. And I do very often make fun of the economy of takes, but that really is all it is. People feel compelled to engage online. Very few people, I think, actually spend all of their time lurking. And if they do, they're probably retarded. They're probably not real people. They're probably 85 IQ. But here, you know who talks the most online and creates the most content? Indian guys. Every morning, India crashes the internet because they all feel compelled to write good morning to each other. So I don't know if it has anything to do with intelligence. It has something to do with, like, if there's something, you're not a real person unless you have some kind of, like society doesn't think you're real unless you are interfacing like a content creator on some level, whether you like it or not. And it's to the point where if you know, at various points in my life, I've flirted with the idea of getting rid of my social media presence. And then I realized I can't get a job if I don't have one. Like, if I don't have a LinkedIn, and also I don't have a LinkedIn where I've posted a few things, or I don't, if the HR person looks up that on me on Facebook and sees I don't have a Facebook, they think there's something fucked up about me, and I won't get hired for that job. That's annoying, but that is the world we live in, where you need to, at the very least, have like a dummy version of yourself out there. Like, and maybe that's where AI comes in as well. But like, to be real, you need to be in this space. Otherwise, society kind of cuts you out. Fuck, even Portlandia had a sketch about that. There's the guy who, I think it was Carrie's character. She's overwhelmed by all the phones and the messages, and she wants to, you know, cash out. She goes to a service to erase her digital identity, and then all of a sudden her friends don't know her anymore.
Yeah.
Like, the friends she meets face to face, like, have we met? Let me look you up. And they're not there, and so she like vanishes from the world. But I'm like, that's funny. It's Fred Armisen's a funny guy, and so is Carrie Brownstein. But like, there's something like dark and cold in there that's an actual thing that happens. Anyway, he continues. It says the internet has become a space for socialization. As things stand, this space is still perceived as an alternative, but the social weight achieved on the internet is already comparable with offline social status. At the end of the day, society is indifferent to how its members define their positions relative to each other. All that is needed is some kind of interaction, a way for people to construct their personal honeycombs so that they're visible to others and can be filled with reprocessed content for the sake of status and exchange. Once again, the economy of takes. But the economy of takes, again, is something that we would make fun of ourselves on the right for doing, but that is society. Society is an economy of takes. For that, like, everyone who's got a Twitter account with no followers, anyone who's on any boomer who's on Facebook. Right now, there's a boomer on Facebook engaging with a very obvious AI image and sending hearts and prayers. And like, there's an image of an Indian boy with 20 fingers that a boomer is responding to with a prayer emoji, because they need the need to exist is so strong that it doesn't even matter if they're talking to a real person. They don't even fucking know anymore, and they're not going to stop. Right? It's such a almost a hyper real thing, but you know, we're so used to it, we don't talk about it or identify it. You know what I mean? Like, I made the case that I don't think anyone in any space has really unpacked the information revolution. It sounds like a pithy thing to say, but I think it's true. And that's why we're getting so into McLuhan. We were getting so into what electronic media has done to our minds, and why we can never go back to a 19th century frame of reference or how we think. Forget thinking like a Roman used to do. That's somewhere buried in our DNA. That's underneath the fucking mud flood of media revolutions that have like separated us from our deep ancestors who wouldn't even know what the fuck we are now. You know, and I say this in an article I want to get published eventually. It's like, you know, to be an effective agent of change in the 21st century means you need to appear as an extraterrestrial to your ancestors. I really believe that. Like, their values are a part of you, but they're not going to understand what it is you're doing. You're on a different wavelength entirely, in the interest of survival and things. So he says here, the thirst for response, which compels one to filter content for each post or comment, is based on each author's personal understanding of social convention. To explain social interaction, Hegel coined the term struggle for recognition, which is often interpreted as demand for recognition or appetite for recognition. But in order to be recognized, technically all that's needed is a response. Recognition is the substance of response. People experience the thirst for response on a physical level. It's the sixth sense, it's the social sense. And so I really do think that is what drives this whole very economy of takes thing that we're talking about. It's that, like, we do need a social response, and we have just recalibrated what valuable social response looks like, for better or worse. So he's got a part here. It says, 80 years ago, in his book, The Revolt of the Masses, Ortega y Gasset put forward the argument that in the 19th century gave the mass man not only welfare, but also the notion of welfare as a standard of living. This was a critical turning point because the common man suddenly had the right to demand welfare, something that in the Middle Ages was not guaranteed even for the elite. Mass man felt a reliability of the world and personal independence. Among other things, Gasset identified a link between the mass man's increasing demands and the explosive population growth in the 19th century in Europe, from 180 million to 460 million people. And that's an interesting way of framing it. It's that, like, the demands for society to be better and a recognition of the value of the individual and the demands they're allowed to place on society may very well coincide with an explosion of population, which very well might mirror the explosion of population under Christianity. Like, that's the positivistic vision that makes people want to reproduce. It's not just material, it's something ontological. It's something that inspires true hope, not just a payment, but it's like, I can not only get money, but I can get all of my dreams fulfilled in some sense. And I've never heard, like, the desire for welfare described that way. I just thought that was an interesting way of describing it. So, and he goes into this concept called the viral editor, and I kind of like this because it explains this internet economy, the sphere of takes, the network of takes, is something called the viral editor. And the viral editor is what could be described as the distributed being of the internet, a sort of artificial intelligence whose processing chips, in quotes, are people, the users. Now, for example, the user's main goal is to elicit a response. As we've already established, on a human level, they want a response. That's their sixth sense, the desire for some kind of recognition. The personal yearning for response is the motivation behind the entire system. While weak on the individual atomic level, there's large arrays of users, and the large arrays of users, this motivation creates strong forces that nourish the viral editor's work. The viral editor enables not only the transmission, but also the crystallization of meaning, which is more important for the infected population, as well as the selection of the very best wording. This is memes, this is people kind of emergently creating the discourse, as we described. This is what the discourse is. It's society noticing that a lot of people are talking about a thing. That's the incel phenomenon. The incel, like, why is everyone talking about that? Well, because enough regular people talked about it. What is the incel phenomenon? Was it a psyop? No. Was it inspired by elites or the publishing industry or science or the medical industry? No. I watched the incel discourse emerge from a couple of guys. A few years ago, there was like 5 guys who coined this term incel. Up until now, where it's in the New York Times. We're on the brink. I bet Trump brings it up soon. Like, it is one of the defining elements of the Western discourse right now. It ties into birth rates, it ties into everything. How did it get there? Well, it kind of got there organically. And it hit the New York Times, and it hit CNN, and it hit all the stuff from the outside and demanded to be reported on legitimately. And so that's how that evolved, is what we call the viral editor. The fundamental difference between the viral editor and the brain is that the viral editor is capable of capturing its own historical states, which make up its unique archival memory, and this memory is accessible at any point in time from any point in time. The crowd unleashes the herd instinct in human, destroying any sense of individuality. The viral editor, on the contrary, the users want a response specific to their individuality, to their assessment, their opinion. The viral editor is nothing more than a necessary side effect of the viral distribution of messages through a network of filters that change it. The viral editor has no goals of its own. The will of the viral editor participants does not add up to a general will. The viral editor does not have a will. Its only will is the will to be. This will is focused on nothing more than its own existence, which is a very metaphysical way of looking at it. But I like that metaphysical framing of this thing that we all kind of identify exists. You know, we call it like the memoplex. We call it the economy of takes. We call it just this thing that seems to this thing that we participate in, but we don't have direct control of. And it's not legacy media, and it's not official, but it seems to have a mind of its own at times. Anyway, he says here as one example, is like WikiLeaks is not the brainchild of Assange or a Secret Service. It was simply an inevitability. If there are forbidden subjects that potentially coincide with someone's interests, they are certain to come to light in order to satisfy this interest. Any content that is of interest of me will reach me. If my personal network is big enough, it is inevitable that my interest will coincide with the interests of someone who has seen an article that is of interest to me. It's not just that I may get it, I cannot fail to get content that is of interest to me. And this is where we kind of get into, I don't know, some of the highfalutin ideas of, you know, the social media activist that's like, this is the god of the feed. You know, in a long enough timeline, you will only get information that is relevant to you, which I don't believe is going to happen. I don't believe it has happened. I don't believe it can happen. I think there's too many forces of work that are trying to curate what I see. There is no, you know, grand leveler artificial intelligence that actually delivers me information I want to see. Most of what I see, I don't want to see. And that's why we have podcasts to talk about it. Why the fuck am I seeing all this horseshit? Why haven't I been happy about anything I've seen in 15 years? You know? So it's not like we're approaching a singularity of perfect content distribution. If anything, it's the opposite. He says Dunbar's number plays a certain role in the ensemble-like interaction of the large number of participants on the web. Robin Dunbar, in his research into brains of primates and the organization of groups, determined that the number of constant social connections that a human is capable of maintaining, this number is on average 150, somewhere between 100 and 200. Dunbar's number argues that the maximum ensemble for each of us is unlikely to consist of more than 150 people, but each of our contacts has his own ensemble within which precisely the same reactive and proactive adjustment is taking place. And also the thirst for response. 150 friends plus another 150 friends for each of our friends, and so on, give us a personal web of reporters or searchers. It acts as a sort of radar capable of discovering everything that is even of slight relevance to our interests. And I think this is why, if you look at the evolution of online communities, Twitter and Facebook were, you know, Facebook was always about, you get your friend group and you want to get as many friends as you can. I remember when Facebook first came around, everyone wanted to get to like 1,000 friends. They were adding everyone they could onto Facebook. You remember that?
Yeah, of course.
And get a huge network. And so what I say is going to go to, when I type a post, it's going to go to all of them. Same thing with Twitter. You're broadcasting to the world. Everyone's going to see, you know, conceivably, everyone's going to see your tweet. But there's no thirst for that. I actually don't think there's a thirst for broadcasting anymore. Maybe that died. That was like a Gen X belief and maybe a millennial belief, but that's out. What we actually want is closed networks. That's Telegram. That's remember Clubhouse. That was that. There's also this one called Locals. Like, we actually prefer having communities, and our chat, you know, it's kind of an ongoing joke in the chat. We're always trying to hover just below Dunbar's number of the active chat participants. And I mean active chat participants, because we always cycle out the people who don't post that much. And no, 120 I think was like the sweet spot we noticed. But that's also what people generally, they don't want to broadcast. They want a fairly large network of their people, and then they use that as that's their news basically. Most people don't watch the news. They watch their online community. That's my belief. That's what I see more people doing now. And that could take place on Discord. That could take place on little Twitter groups and private chats. But I think we're seeing a lot of news filter into these communities, which are news networks. That's the replacement for the feed, because we also don't trust feeds. Feeds are done. Feeds have been so fucking corrupted with curated news and bought and paid for news that I like the Facebook feed, the Twitter feed, it's all bogus. And we know that's not the real thing. So we actually need that human filtration element, because like what was the feed except trying to almost replace the viral editor in a sense? It's trying to say, oh, we'll capture things that are more popular. The entire idea of the feed was we're only going to show you things that we believe are relevant to you. How often does the feed get it right? Almost never. How often is your community right? Constantly. And this is just a replication of your kin network, of your community, or your village used to be how you would get your news filtered. You didn't just read a newspaper, you listen to people talk about the news, right? So that is what it is. I believe we're working our way back to that. And that bothers advertisers, by the way. That bothers marketers. That bothers platforms in a sense, because they don't know how to monetize that. They know how to monetize a feed. They know how to create an ad network on a news article. You know what they hate? When people take screenshots of articles and pass those around, because those don't include the ads. You know what people hate? When people do little clips of the news and comment on that. That's a filter. That's a filter advertisers don't get to control. And I don't think they know what to do about that yet. And that might very well be the end of the digital advertising has been in free fall for quite some time. And I was called crazy back in the day for talking about this, but they don't know how to get these ads in front of the demographics that they want. All they really got right now is influencers and those sponsorships, and but they don't know how to sort data properly. They actually don't know how to get their arms around the problem of bots. Twitter is the only platform that's tried to get its arms around the problem of bots. Isn't that interesting? Facebook kind of too, but Twitter really does. TikTok, forget it. That might be mostly bots, and it is actually mostly bots. Anyway, he says here, the old establishment wants a comfortable opponent, packaged according to institutional rules. For victorious battle, the institutions need someone like them. Someone who is perfectly formed, delegated, sanctioned, and dosed out. Institutions therefore demand that the web environment reduces its existence to an acceptable level, but an environment of peers is not capable of putting forward delegates. It is neither bosses nor proteges, except for the self-appointed ones that are more active than the rest. These would be like power users. But he also says the negative evaluation of digital information by its own participants is a bizarre phenomenon. And we see that as well, where like people who spend most of their time online and get most of their information online will say that, oh, everything on the internet's fake. Never believe anything you believe on the internet, right? But why not? Is it more or less credible than the news? I argue it's more credible because it's been through more filters and more people have like contextualized it. And if it's people you trust, it's people you have something in common with and have the same goals, why would that information not be more reliable? Now, if there's one problem we have, unfortunately, I think it's on the right and the left, we believe every screenshot we see. We should stop doing that. If you see a screenshot of a news article, just confirm that it's real before you pop off.
Yeah, I want to though.
And
I want to
joke,
believe it.
That's the joke I make. Like, maybe I just want to pop off. Maybe popping off, I don't need it to be real, because I know it's maybe that particular fake article was conjured up by a meme lord. But contextually, it's true. Contextually, it is drawing from, I've seen 5 other articles that are like that, and this one is just a bit too cartoonish, right? But it's like, no one makes fake articles for fake news. They make fake articles for real news that you see every single day. But he says, in essence, it represents a lack of trust in the collective self. Internet critics don't trust the collective self because in the old world, the source of information was not allowed to be equal to the public in terms of status. It is during wide-scale and emotionally charged events, like the Boston terrorist bombing he cites here. That's dating this book, right? That the problem becomes particularly acute. So yeah, the "we did it" Reddit moment. Like how often, and maybe that's just an indictment of Redditors. That's not an indictment of internet sleuth. That's just saying Redditors are shit for brains and they don't know how to solve true crime stories. However, I think my guys are pretty good at it, and that I'm standing by that. He makes an interesting case here where he says, under careful consideration, it becomes clear that any example of lying on the internet is actually an example of those lies being exposed, because whoever points out the instance of lie somehow finds out that it was a lie. So that's an interesting point. That do people lie more on the internet, or are lies exposed more effectively? Let's take my previous example, the person who passes around the fake screenshot, right? Under normal circumstances, that fake screenshot might have just been believed by him, but he is part of a community where there's someone like me who looks it up and says that's fake. Now, you can choose to believe a fake thing if you want, but now you know it's fake because you put it to the filter of this group and someone revealed its fakeness. Whereas in institutional-led media, lies were just never discovered or questioned. So it could be a bit of an illusion that, the internet's full of false stories. No, we're actually better at uncovering them quicker, right? A boomer doesn't know when he's been lied to. A boomer reading the newspaper has no idea he's reading bullshit because he believes, well, why would they print? They can't just print bullshit. They'd go to jail, would they? Why would they? There's never been a good journalist in human history. There's never been truth in any of this shit. Like, if you know that, then we could have a conversation. He says the change in the semantic code of civilization will occur in unison with the global change from the broadcast media model to the involvement media model, and with the replacement of the institutional principle of social structure with the network principle. Any meditations on the future of the media, if correctly and logically conducted, lead to the concept of post-humanism. The migration of humans to a new environment has already begun. We already operate with our awkward alter egos on social networks and transport our personal belongings into a virtual space. The evolution of forms of consciousness is accompanied by the rejection of exhausted stages. They remain in the historical past. Due to the compression of historical time, exhausted stages are being shed more and more frequently. The concept of 3 media revolutions, the emancipation of writing, reading, and authorship, demonstrates that we are already within the next global reset. So in a sense, this book is like pointing to the fact that, look, this has already happened. This social media, this communication revolution, it's already happened. It happened decades ago. It happened with IRC chats. And we're actually now reaching the end of this one. And I think that's something we've commented on before, where it seems that the centers of power have already been trying to adopt our techniques and our strategies and are like trying to take memes and the concept of memes and gravitate that towards an ossifying center of gravity. So it's like, well, what's the next thing? What's the next configuration of humanity in the digital space? And like I said, they keep trying to hit us with new versions of AI, and that doesn't seem to take. And I think there's something to be learned from that. Even a company like Meta, where they can throw billions of dollars at it, no one wants it. No one wants to just be a lone individual in a digital space, regardless of how many opportunities you give them. No one similarly wants to just broadcast their thoughts to the entire world. That is the phase shift we're into now. We're actually becoming more digitally local. And what does that mean for the future? And what does that mean for the viral editor? This digital organism, for lack of a better term, that constitutes not a hive mind. I think that's the wrong way to look at it, but it's like It is like, what is the digital world except the metaphysical representation of the discourse? It's the discourse given form. It's the discourse itself given its own memory and its own behavior, and we can actually track how it evolves as if it's this fucking specter we can see. And I think that's what's interesting to me, and how so when you talk about what's next, it's like, what is the evolution of that thing, this strange digital ghost that we can actually see now as its own distinct thing. Now, I know that was all very kind of esoteric, strange stuff. What do you think about all that?
Wow, love it.
And maybe by the end of this, by this whole arc's finality, I'll be on Urbit. I've had a few people trying to get me on Urbit for a year and a half to 2 years now.
You'll be on Urbit. I'll be on Mastodon. We'll meet by the seashore and we'll shoot each other. And it'll finally be over.
And we can finally stop this show.
this fucking charade.
Someone's, I think it was, I forget who did. I was Meta Prime actually. He was like, it was just a riff about how he's infected my computer with a virus, and he's like, I'm in control of Blood Satellite now. I said, finally, I can rest. Thank you for freeing me. And then I just turn to dust as I'm reaching out.
The curse is lifted.
I'm free.
Do not let the rapists win. Listen and love Blood Satellite.